For almost 2 weeks now, the humanitarian organization Doctors Without Borders has been sounding the alarm that the port city of Mariupol in the southeastern corner of Ukraine is in particularly dire straits. They warned then that many were lacking basic needs like running water. And since then, things have only gotten worse. This is a phone call between Doctors Without Borders and one of their staff members in Mariupol from this past Saturday, March 12th.
People lost connection with their relatives. They don't know what is happening with their relatives in other districts of Mariupol. And it's already lasting for more than 1 week, and people really very worried about their relatives. They don't know if they're alive or they already maybe not alive. We saw people who died because of lack of medication. And there are a lot of such people inside Mariupol, and many people who were killed and injured, and they are just lying on the ground, and neighbors just digging the hole in the ground and dead bodies inside.
That was Saturday. Today, that already terrible situation escalated dramatically. Mariupol City Council said today that a powerful Russian bomb hit this building, a theater where City Council believes hundreds of civilians were sheltering. Now, city officials could not immediately assess how many people have been killed or injured because the entrance to the bomb shelter has been blocked by rubble. So what does this mean for the already precarious medical situation on the ground in Mariupol? And what does medical care look like in all of Ukraine right now? Joining us now is Alex Wade. He's an emergency coordinator with Doctors Without Borders. He spent the last few weeks traveling all over Ukraine, from Lviv in the west to the central Ukrainian city of Dnipro, and that's where he joins us from tonight. Alex, thanks very much for joining us this evening. I know you and the world are particularly concerned right now about the city of Mariupol. Prior to today's news about the bombing at a theater there that was being used as a shelter, what made Mariupol's situation worse than other cities?
For us, one of the most concerning things is that we've been completely cut off from being able to access Mariupol. So we also lost communications with the hospitals there, who we had been in contact with, who we had been donating supplies to. The last communication we had was that they were receiving an increased amount of wounded, and they were worried about running out of supplies because the medical supply chain in the entire country has been disrupted due to this war. And so we were worried about the situation in the hospitals. But for us also, we have staff, colleagues of ours who work for MSF, who are there in Mariupol, who've been reporting to us the conditions. And they are truly horrific. They're saying it's a living nightmare. They're saying it's hell on earth. They've reported to us the lack of water and food in the city. They've reported to us the dead bodies littering the streets, and stories of neighbors having to bury the dead bodies of their own neighbors, that people have started dying due to lack of access to medical care, people with chronic conditions who need access to insulin, hemodialysis, pregnant women who need access to safe birthing, and then also the many people who have died from the violence and from the shelling inside the city.
Alex, Doctors Without Borders, or MSF as you call it, Médecins Sans Frontières, has had a lot of experience with taking doctors into some of the worst places in the world in terms of atrocities and dangers. You are facing a situation where not only is your medical supply chain imperiled, but there have been hospitals and medical facilities that have been hit. How does this affect the delivery of your services?
I mean, it affects it enormously because, indeed, we do work all over the world in conflict zones, but we do it by with our principles of neutrality and impartiality, negotiating with all partners, and under the rules of international humanitarian law, we try to work in a protected environment such as hospitals, negotiating with all parties that it is in everyone's interest for civilian non-combatants to have access to medical care, as is their right due to international humanitarian law and what we also call the rules of war. And until present, we can see that the rules of war have not always been respected so far. There's been shelling in residential areas. There have been civilian casualties, innocent people who should be safe to stay in their homes or should be safe to choose to leave and seek shelter elsewhere. And we haven't been seeing that. We've seen hospitals being hit. and there has been bombings in numerous residential areas. So it makes our ability to work incredibly complicated. We don't have the guarantees we usually try to obtain in conflict zones to have all parties respecting humanitarian access for the population. We haven't been able to have those sort of assurances and guarantees until now, so we haven't been able to access Mariupol in the way we would like, to bring in supplies, to bring in personnel, and to support the health system.
What does that actually mean, Alex, for the volunteers on which your organization exists? Obviously, you get donations, but you have doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, and other volunteers who go into these places. They are going in to a place where they do not have the normal guarantees that they're used to. There are never any guarantees with anything Doctors Without Borders does. But how does that affect the flow of people?
I mean, it affects our ability to send people to the places where the most needed. So we have many staff in Ukraine who are operating in different parts of the country. But the staff we have currently in Mariupol are actually there because there was an ongoing project before the war started. It's a project that opened in 2015 when the conflict in the east began. And so it's staff who are already there with other ongoing activities who then got there once the conflict started. We'd like to send emergency teams. We have teams ready to go. We have supply ready to go if such a passage opens up. But until now, it hasn't. And so we're unable to access the places like Mariupol, which have the highest needs right now.